Hey, good afternoon. I'm Alex Cologne. This is Sasha Segan, and you are watching Dialed In. This is PC Mag's weekly show.
Occasional show.
I stumbled because, we didn't do it last week when everyone was out at Mobile World Congress, but this is our show. It's all about mobile phones and technology. So like I just said, last week we were at Mobile World Congress.
And next week we will have a Galaxy S9. I promise. Next week we will have the Galaxy S9 on the show.
But you were there, you saw it, you touched it, you could tell us about it, and that is what you're going to do shortly.
Yes.
So if you're watching this live on Facebook now and you have any questions, feel free to leave us a comment. If you're watching it later on YouTube, you can leave some comments there, but also please like and subscribe to our channel. And let's start with the biggest news from the show, which I think goes without saying was the Galaxy S9.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of the other, some of the other big manufacturers kind of cleared their calendars, and a lot of other phones did come out at the show. But for instance, Huawei moved the P20 announcement to March, and LG may have bumped the G7 as late as June, and that just kind of cleared the decks for the Galaxy S9 to be the premier device.
Now, when you say that those people bumped their releases, is that because of the Galaxy S9 or it's unrelated?
So with LG, LG has a new mobile CEO, and from the scuttlebutt I heard, the mobile CEO basically put all of their projects on ice for re-examination at the beginning of the year.
Okay.
So the G7 got bumped because there's a new boss in town, and the new boss wanted to question everything,
right?
And that included questioning the G7. But with Huawei, I do believe that Huawei was ready to release the P20 at Mobile World Congress and heard that the S9 was coming and blinked.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. So the S9, was Huawei right to hold off on their announcement?
It's nice. Okay. So here is I'm in the middle of my thought process about the S9, and I've used it some, and I've tested out some of the features, and we're in the middle of testing more of the features, and I did the disturbing AR emoji thing and all of that, and what just keeps coming, it is better in every way than the S8.
Right.
It is probably the finest example of every individual feature on the market. It's really boring. It is, and I think this just may speak to what kind of a sort of jaded phone maniac I am, because for somebody who doesn't look at 100 phones a year and is just looking for, hey, what's the best camera? What's the best modem? What's the best screen? What's the best speaker?
Right.
What is the best call quality? What feels great in the hand? The S9 appears to, and once more we're double checking, the S9 appears to do all of these things and appears to fulfill all of these criteria, but there is nothing about it that tells really a new story.
All right, so let's get into detail on some of these new features.
Yeah.
Like for instance, the AR feature.
Yeah.
What about that? What did you think?
Oh man, do you have to start with the worst thing?
I just think it was fun because that video that we showed with your AR face.
Yeah, that's disturbing. Okay. So as usually happens with Samsung, they've done a bunch of good borderline amazing hardware things and some bad borderline disturbing software things. And their AR emoji, which turns you into a animated Bitmoji-like version of Vaguely Yourself, falls so firmly into the uncanny valley. And the faces are so weirdly, slightly customized and slightly cartoonish, and the mouths lag behind your speech just a tiny bit, and it's just disturbing. Like, I kept on showing it to kids in the room and they would run screaming.
No, I didn't actually see you using it live, but you thought that it didn't look like you at all. I thought it kind of looked like you.
Okay, so once you customize it, it looks a lot more like you. So the default setting, it comes out with the default, and the default doesn't look like you, or doesn't look like me, because the default, for instance, has default hair and a default skin tone, and no glasses. And once I added the accessories and gave it my hairdo and gave it my skin tone and all of that, it was recognizable as me. But the sort of kind of slackness of the facial motions is super disturbing, and that's because unlike Apple, so it's because of two things. So first of all, Apple's Animoji are animated characters in part to avoid the uncanny valley problem.
Right.
They're not human. You don't expect them to be human. You don't expect their faces to act the way a human face acts. So you're giving them a lot of leeway that you wouldn't give with a human face. Samsung has set itself a harder task, and they don't have the 3D infrared face mapping camera that Apple has on the front of their phone.
Right.
So they've set themselves a much harder task than Apple and are not using tools that are as good. And so the result is the AR emoji. Actually, the best use of the AR emoji is it creates these silly silly sort of emoticon GIFs, which are very much like slightly upgraded Bitmoji. And those are kind of cute.
Right.
But it's definitely an example of Samsung, you know, shooting for the moon and messing with some software.
Okay, so that is clearly your least favorite feature.
Yes.
What are some of the ones that you find impressive?
Okay. Well, what they've done with the camera, the screen, and the audio, and these are like the core functions of a phone, right? Sorry, 4 things: camera, screen, audio, modem. These are the core functions of a phone. That's the thing. And the camera, they have this this mechanical aperture that opens to f1.5, and that does appear to have a distinct difference in low light. And once more, we are continuing to test this, but that is really cool. The speakers, I tested the speakers. They are genuinely considerably louder than the S8 speakers, dual speakers. And this affects not just media, but I'm really happy to say, because I like call quality, makes the speakerphone considerably louder too. The screen, DisplayMate Labs looked at the screen. They say it is brighter than the S8 screen, and you can manually change the white point. And that's going to thrill a lot of people, because if you remember when the Pixel 2 XL came out, all these people freak out about how blue or yellow their screen is.
Right.
Well, on the S9, it can be as blue or as yellow as you want.
And did they say anything about the screen compared to the iPhone screen?
Racenera likes it a little more than the iPhone 10 screen. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
We have a question.
Are the AR emojis the only major augmented reality features of the S9?
So there are a bunch of AI. There's a bunch of image recognition camera modes that all fall under the Bixby rubric. And some of them work better than others. For instance, there's one that's supposed to live translate text in an image. It works very poorly, especially on certain languages. But there's another one that counts the calories in food, and it works really, really well.
So what are some of the things that you tried it on?
So I live in a neighborhood that has a lot of different, that has a lot of grocery stores with different like exotic fruits and vegetables, and it got almost all of them.
Right.
Like it knows the difference between a grapefruit and a pomelo grapefruit. Okay, but I also tried it on like a piece of pound cake, a smoothie. Let me see, a grilled cheese sandwich.
Right.
You know, and it can figure it out.
Now, can it figure out like if you have the whole plate filled with different things on it?
No, it does object by object.
Okay.
And it'll tell you like what a standard serving is. It can't judge the size of the serving. But that worked. The text translation, not so much. The AR emoji, along with that, they have a whole bunch of sort of AR Snapchat masks that you can put on yourself.
Right.
And those are kind of cheesy, and I guess I'm just not into Snapchat masks. But yeah, not cutting edge on the augmented reality here. But getting back to the good things. Okay, so so the audio good, screen good, camera good. We're in the middle of checking out the modem, and I am super encouraged for some of the things I'm hearing about the way this thing connects to LTE. It has, without getting too technical, it can transfer more streams of data on more frequency bands than any other phone I've ever seen.
Right.
And so that means that when you hook it up to, say, AT&T or T-Mobile, you're going to get faster, clearer connections. And you know that excites me.
Right. I also know that you're happy about the headphone jack.
Yes. And that's the thing that hasn't changed. That's the thing. Like, they didn't mess with the headphone jack, and the headphone jack is good, and it comes with the exact same AKG earbuds as the S8 did.
Right.
And but the thing is, like, so I'm describing all of these things, and there's a lot of good things, and like we make a lot of fun of the AR emoji, but really that's just a software feature that most people aren't going to click on. But I'm stuck struggling a little with, oh, what's the game changer? And there's not really a game changer here. Like, and I'm going to make a bold prediction and say there aren't going to be any game changers this year. There aren't going to be any game changers in 2018 in general.
Are you including Apple in that?
Might as well, yeah. Bold prediction. No game changers in 2018. And the reason for that is a big thing I discovered at Mobile World Congress, which is that everybody is so heads down working on 5G right now that they are putting out, that they are not focused on really innovating at this moment, because there's going to be this explosion of innovation at the beginning of next year.
So do you think that they're working on those projects now?
Yes, absolutely, no question. And this could include, for instance, the Samsung Galaxy X folder phone.
Right.
Okay, that could be an early 5G, early 2019 launch. This would include, I don't know what Apple's doing, but this will include both the CTOs of both Sprint and T-Mobile said they would expect 5G phones at next year's Mobile World Congress. And more than just faster, that's going to have, there's going to be some innovative new ideas there. I have confidence that there are.
Right.
But I don't think especially in the first 6 months of this year, we're going to see a lot that's going to make us go, oh wow, that changes everything I think about smartphones.
Well, I mean, the phone that probably would have, accomplished that would be the Galaxy S9. And like you're saying, it's better in every way, but there's nothing that's particularly innovative or surprising about it.
Yeah, yeah. And as I've said on previous webcasts, a lot of people do think that Samsung is sinking so much of its innovation talent into this Galaxy X folder right now, and that is the next phase of Samsung innovation. We just aren't seeing it yet.
Right.
We're just seeing sort of leaks and predictions and the mistakes they're making along the way.
Right.
Yeah.
All right, so that's a lot of Samsung.
Yeah.
We spoke about LG in the beginning of the show,
Yep.
saying that there wasn't a G7. But
No.
LG was at the show. They did
Yeah.
have some things that we saw.
Yeah, I mean they had, so LG seems to be in a little bit of an organizational mess right now. They have this new boss. The new boss seems to have put the kibosh on a whole bunch of projects. And so as a result, they rolled out some mid-range phones, K8 and K10.
Right.
K10's kind of nice mid-range phone. Be great, $119 at Metro PCS or whatever.
Right.
And then they roll out this thing called the LG V30S ThinQ, which is the worst named phone I've seen in 5 years.
It's not pronounced think.
No, it is pronounced ThinQ.
Okay.
Yes. And what makes this phone now? This is really actually just some interesting camera modes disguised as a phone. And the most interesting one is they have a low light mode that combines 4 pixels into 1 pixel and dramatically brightens up images.
Is that, I'm trying to remember, what was HTC's Ultra Pixel?
HTC's Ultra Pixel was having pixels 4 times the size. So it's a similar idea. But HTC's Ultra Pixel didn't work.
Right.
And this actually works. And like the cool thing here is that this may come to existing LG V30 phones. And I think it's really cool that Android manufacturers don't often deliver meaningful feature updates to existing devices.
Right.
And this is like a device that will like change the V30 in a major way for the better. And so that's exciting.
Let's take a quick question.
We just got a late question on the S9 Plus. Someone's asking what the sound is like.
It's louder. So I don't believe that any phone I have ever seen in all of history has good sound out of its phone speakers. I don't believe it is physically possible to make good sound out of phone speakers.
Yeah, it's all about volume.
Yeah, it's all about volume without distortion, but it's going to be tinny no matter what you do. That's physics, okay? So that said, 6 dB better maximum volume on this than on the S9 Plus than on the S8, and that's significant. And considerably less noticeable distortion, slightly less tinny. So it is a step forward for phone audio. But that said, these are speakers this big. You know, it's not going to be a Sonos One.
All right, let's get back to LG.
Okay.
So what I'm wondering about this phone, if they roll out these camera updates to existing V30s, how is this new V30 ThinQ different?
It has more storage and more RAM, and sort of shimmery new color. But yeah, it shouldn't have been announced as a device. It should have been announced as kind of, we're upgrading the V30. Here's you know how we're rolling out upgrades to the V30.
Yeah, this sounds like just a special edition.
It was a weird messaging failure, but it was kind of like they stepped out and they wanted to say we have this new phone, and they kind of failed at it. But what they really should have done is come out and said, hey, you don't have to buy a new phone. At LG, you know, your phone will get more powerful with time.
Right.
And that's cool, and like Samsung doesn't do that so much, so that could have been an advantage for them.
All right, let's move from LG to Asus.
Right. The Zenfone 5. Right. Let me see if I can get that one up, because I want to show you something. Where are you? There you are. What? We don't have a picture?
There should be. Here, click that.
We clicking through to the Zenfone 5? Because the funniest thing about the Zenfone 5, and this is something I wanted to kind of segue into, is that it is a great example of, oh no, like the images in the story just aren't loading.
Let me try.
Oh, there we go. Found it. Found it. Okay. It is a great example of the notch problem. Why? Why the notch?
Well, is it accomplishing anything in this?
No!
Okay.
So the Zenfone, the more interesting Zenfone 5 is the Zenfone 5 Lite, which has dual front and dual rear cameras. Let me make sure I have that right, because AJ did the Zenfone 5. I was not at that event. So where are we? Yeah, and the Zenfone 5 Lite gets rid of the notch too. Where are we? Yeah. Okay, yeah. Oh no, sorry. It's just dual rear cameras. Okay, but so what I want to get on with the Zenfone 5 is that all over the show. I'm sorry about that confusion. I was not at the Zenfone 5 event. We had a whole team there. It was not what I was focused on. I apologize. It was like, okay, so actually an analyst told me that there is a surplus of notched screen panels in the world right now because Chinese manufacturers, after the iPhone X came out, all decided that people would want to create iPhone X-like but cheaper phones, and so they all started to create notched screen panels, and the result of this snowballing economy is that it is weirdly inexpensive to buy screen panels that have a shark bite taken out of them. And as a result, we saw all of these phones with a useless notch in the screen panel this year, and it is so stupid. It is the stupidest trend. It is the absolute stupidest trend because the iPhone X notch sucks. The iPhone X notch is a dumb idea necessitated by the inability to put an IR camera under the screen. Okay. And these guys are doing it not for any functionality, but just so they can look vaguely like an iPhone X.
Or because they got the panel for cheap.
Or because they got the panel for cheap. I guess that's a reason. So here we have Asus. You know, that's notchy. Here we have, yes, the Doogie V. Check out the Doogie V. Big old notch there. And what's funny is that the camera isn't even in the notch. The camera pops out from behind the phone. And then so there were other devices from, Wiko, Noah, Ela, Ukitel, Ulifone. These are all these sort of companies that generally sell in, there's the Noah one popped up, how ridiculously iPhone X is at.
Right.
All these companies generally sell phones in Europe and Asia. and they seem to be obsessed with copying the aesthetics of an Apple mistake.
Right.
Yeah.
So I take it you're not a fan of the notch.
Not a fan of the notch, not a fan of any phones with the notch. I'm a fan of the iPhone 10 because of a lot of things it does well. I think the notch is its greatest flaw.
All right, let's take a question.
I mean, can you think of any other example where there was that sort of level of like shameless imitation, where something like such a surface feature too?
I'm trying to think.
I feel like there's a lot. So, for instance, there are a number of Android phones. I think Huawei is the culprit most of the time. Where one of the things that we like about Android is the fact that all of your apps don't have to be splashed across the screen.
Oh yeah,
like
yeah.
an
You can.
iPhone.
Yeah, you can have. You have the app drawer.
Whereas Huawei, by default, removes the app drawer, and they make your home screens like the iPhone, where you have to have everything.
Right, and they've been doing it less with time. But you're right. The early versions of Huawei EMUI were like this shameless iOS UI clone.
I feel like there's some other manufacturers that do that too, but I feel like there's a bunch of examples that are not coming to my head.
Yeah, but also like, and it used to be more this way. But if you it used to be if you went to China, you would see these real copies of things.
Right.
Like there's a now pretty old Chinese manufacturer called Konka. Okay. Konka, but they use the same font as the old font for the Nokia logo. And sort of the lines in the K look like a line, an N, and an I, and it's so obvious that they were just stealing the Nokia logo.
Right.
Yeah. Which is not too, like, I remember actually when I was in China in 2011, I would see phones by Nokia and Samsung. Yeah, that was yeah.
We have another question.
Did HTC do anything at this year's show?
No phones from HTC. No. I know, it's weird, isn't it? HTC promises they will have another phone eventually. They were just showing the Vive wireless adapter. Yeah. They just lost like 1,000 of their people to Google.
Right.
And Google was at the show, but not with hardware. Google had a whole bunch of booths basically talking about Android features in the Google Assistant. That said, we did give Google an award because so one of the genuine innovations at the show actually was in OSs. And Google Android Go is this very low-power, pure Google version of Android, which is starting to appear on low-end phones.
Right.
That we really like. And it kind of gives a very low-rent version of almost the Pixel experience, or let's say the Nexus experience, to inexpensive phones.
Right.
And given that inexpensive phones here in the US tend to have ridiculous skins on them, the fact that we are now hearing about Android Go low-cost phones coming to the US, it's going to be a software experience people are really going to like more.
I do have to wonder, though, I mean, if Google does have this version of their OS that operates well on phones with lower power, won't that work even better then if you put it to a high-end phone?
I need to look into this more. I need to look into the difference between Android Go and full Android and what features are being left out.
Yeah, it's not clear the trade-off yet.
Yeah. But I mean, there obviously has to be a trade-off.
Right.
But I'm just excited that people who are buying prepaid and people who are buying low-end are going to have more options than just Motorola for a clean software experience.
We have another question.
Will the Vivo Apex concept eventually become a real phone?
Oh, who knows? It's a concept. The number of concepts that I've seen from Kyocera that never happened, for instance, so many. Now that said, there are two things in some of Vivo's concept phones that are very, very real that we saw, for instance, with Doogie, okay, which are the in-display fingerprint sensor. There's going to be more and more of those this year, and pop-up cameras. And there's going to be some of those this year.
Right.
So those are definitely trends in the industry that are going to expand through 2018. But you should never take a specific concept phone seriously. What you should do is break it down for its individual features and say, how could this feature be implemented? How could this feature be implemented? Oh, this one is probably too ambitious.
Right. So we did see a number of other phones, but we are running short on time here. So are there any that really stand out to you?
Yes, and I want to talk about two more. Okay. One is the Sony Xperia XZ2 Compact, because that is a 5-inch Snapdragon 845 Android phone, and that is a case of it is the most powerful small phone I think we're going to see this year.
Right.
And I mean, that's just great because, I mean, when we're talking, you know, Galaxy S9, the smaller version is 5.8 inches. The XZ2 Compact, for a genuinely compact phone, it really doesn't compromise. And so you have, you know, you have your fastest possible processor, you have all your modem features, you have your 19 megapixel camera that does 3D scanning. I am really excited for that in countries which actually sell Sony phones.
We've seen a couple of them here.
Well, they come unlocked through the Sony store, and nobody buys them.
Right.
You know. The other thing I'm excited for is another operating system, and that is KaiOS, and this is appearing on feature phones, simple flip phones, and what this is doing is it is bringing, so it is actually an evolution of the Firefox OS, and it's going to bring an app store with very important targeted apps to these flip phones, like the Google Assistant,
right,
and a limited but working version, pardon me, of Facebook. And so people who want a flip phone but don't want to be totally out of the stream of reality,
right,
you know, will be able to get, you know, you're going to have flip phones on 4G networks that won't immerse you horrifyingly in social media, but will let you see your grandkids' baby photographs.
And are we going to see these phones in the US?
That's a big question. Actually, I'm going back and forth with various people on email about that right now. I was very, very disappointed to hear that one of the first new version KaiOS phones, the Doro, I think it's the 8060, 7060, in any case, it's a Doro phone, is going to be crippled by its carrier in the US to remove those social networking features.
Okay.
And I have a story in which the carrier, Consumer Cellular, they explain why, but I'm still very disappointed. But now I'm hearing murmurs that there will be other devices on other carriers. The carriers just aren't ready to talk about them yet.
Right.
I would be very heartened by that because I love voice phones. I love feature phones. 12 million of them were sold in the US last year. And I think that there's a place for them in the modern world, but I think that also has to include some modern features.
Right. So KaiOS, something we want to see more of this.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. Mobile World Congress, lots of phones. We have lots of coverage on PCMag.com. But I have to say, it left me more excited for MWC 2019 than 2018.
I think, yeah, it's a safe bet that we'll see some cool phones next year.
There's going to be some amazing 5G stuff next year. Until then, we can mock all the phones with the notches.
And I mean, next week, there's still something to be excited about. We'll have the Galaxy S9.
Yeah, we're going to have the Galaxy S9 on the show next week. And even though I am struggling with my emotions about the Galaxy S9, especially if you're on a Galaxy S6 or an S7 or an LG G6 right now, or like a 3-year-old Motorola phone,
right,
you look at this and just the level of finesse and the level of quality finish on this hardware is just spectacular. Samsung does that so well.
So if you're interested in that, check back next week, same time, same place, and we will have, we should have that and the S9 Plus to show you.
Yeah.
So thanks for watching Dialed In, and we will see you again next week.